Welcome back to another episode of What Are You Made Of with your boy, Mike C-Roc. It is an awesome day because we have Lisa Patrick with us, and I'm excited to find out what she's made of. Before we do that, though, guys, I want to remind you that the book Rocket Fuel, my debut book, with the foreword written by Grant Cardone, is out. February 7th is the release date, depending on when this episode comes out. But you can get it no matter what, because as I'm speaking right now, it's available via the link MikeCroc.com/book, MikeCroc.com/book. That's C-Roc, C-R-O-C, by the way. And I want to thank all of you for joining us. Thank you for your listenership. Thank you for the opportunity to inspire you and bring guests on to inspire you. I'm full of gratitude for that and humbled that I have that opportunity. So let's introduce our guest, Lisa, today. She's an investor, business development strategist, and personal branding expert, Forbes and Entrepreneur magazine contributor, acting chief entrepreneur officer at Belongify, partner, and Canadian master distributor at Assessment 24/7, I guess, .ca, x7.ca. I'll let you clarify that in a minute. And CEO of her own personal brand, consulting with other thought leaders, helping them make their brands relevant, creating new connections and impact while growing legacies of their own. Recently nominated as one of 12 finalists for Top Sales World podcast, the Coffee with Lisa podcast. Lisa hosts an eclectic group of world-renowned authorities who share their stories and experiences in business and life over a cup of coffee. Now, that was tough, guys, because there's some really words in there that you have to really pronunciate. And it was good to get my mouth warmed up for this interview. So, Lisa, thank you very much for sharing that bio, and thank you for being here.
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Love it. So you gotta tell me, what does Waymo crew? What does the Waymo crew mean?
Waymo is short for what are you made of? So long story short, we started using Waymo, hashtag Waymo, instead of what are you made of, all long and everything. And we shortened it. And then I started selling hats and shirts, and come to find out, Google has a company with self-driving car technology called Waymo. So I got a letter from their attorneys, which is awesome because that means I got Google's attention and did something right. But we worked it out. And I wear the hat still, but I can't sell any product or talk really much about Waymo. I talk about what are you made of? And we've gone on to talk about rocket fuel now. And just let me remind our listeners, and Lisa, this you as well, what are you made of is all about turning setbacks into rocket fuel. When I said, what are you made of to myself? And I continuously say that to myself, it's in tough times or times where I want to take things up a notch. And I look back and say all the, like really evaluate all the things that I've been through in my life and know that that is all fuel and training sessions for my future. And so this podcast was spurned out of that concept. And I bring guests on now to share their stories and things that they look back on, not for regret or to get stuck in the past, but what do they use to fuel their success? Because everybody's got it. So Lisa, I'm going to ask you the question. What are you made of?
Well, Mike, I'm made of a few things. I have 4 guiding principles that I use every day, each and every day, all day long. And the first one is find a way. And so I'm sure you can relate, you know, when we're stuck in a moment, we have to find a way. And whether that's a workaround or that's a process or a system, whatever it takes to get it done, we have to find a way to do it. The second one is forward, not perfection. And so I think a lot of people get like stuck in this perfection mode, right? Where they want to have it so perfect that they never move forward. And that just stops them from doing some really great things and tuning in to the frequency of their greatness, right? Because they're stuck and they're so worried about being perfect, and perfect never, it's not a great place to be.
Yeah.
Next one is let loose.
That reminds me, hold on one second. I want to stop you for a second, because that reminds me, we always say thrust is a must, because you must be moving forward no matter what. Thrust is a must. Go forward. And we obviously tie that into rocket fuel. So I love that one, by the way.
Yeah. It's so then the next one is let loose, because I think we forget to really truly be ourselves, right? And let loose of everything else, whatever that may be, whatever some haters are hating on you, or you've created these stories, because lots of times people create their own stories in their mind of what they believe to be true, but in reality, it's nothing like that. It's funny, I had, when I met this one lady, this is quite a few years ago now, we're really good friends, but we were talking over text. And I said to her, I just simply sent this text. I said, oh my God, this blew my mind. And 20 minutes later, there was a knock on my door, because she's locally, and she's standing there like physically shaking and upset. And she's like, are you all right? Are you all right? And I'm like, oh no, are you all right? Like, you look like you're about to fall apart. Is everything okay? And she's like, well, no, you told me that this is going to blow your mind. So she automatically, the story in her mind went to something bad had happened.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And in my mind, it was like, yes, awesome. Something really great happened. So words really matter. And, you know, we've got to be able to let loose of those stories and those predispositions of what we think and those biases, right? Because we don't necessarily know what's always going on in somebody else's world.
Yeah,
So
and you know, that's
important.
all formulated by past experiences or people's imprint on our subconscious mind of, you know, somebody else said that to her before, or maybe she wasn't really, maybe she was younger and didn't really know that somebody said that, and there was some kind of trauma attached to that, obviously. And so that's what she related to, right? And then here you're excited.
Exactly. And the thing is that I think people just automatically default to the bad. We have to hardwire our brains to think everything is always a positive and is good, and not to default to, oh my God, somebody, you know, why aren't they answering their call? Or, you know, what did I do wrong? Or, you know, people default to that so quickly and easily. And that's really what gets us often into trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's 100%. I'm in alignment with you there with everything that I talk about all the time. So you're not going to get out of this question, by the way. I want to know what you are made of. Like, what are some things from your past? Sometimes I have to dig a little bit with people because I love that, what you just shared, but I want to dig deeper. So let's go back. And what are some things that, like, tell us some stories or anecdotes from your past that you still think about and feed off of?
Sure. So one time, so I'm fortunate that I have some really great mentors and guides and advisors. And early in my speaking career, I had to go onto stage. And right before the event, Patricia Fripp, who is a Hall of Fame professional speaker and she's a speech coach, pulled me aside. And she said, I want to know how are you opening your like, how are you opening your presentation? And so I gave her what I was going to open. And I was nervous because this is really the first time ever I had been in front of a stage. And, you know, I was sabotaging myself because here I was thinking, okay, are they going to want to listen to me? Do I have anything of value? You know, all these things that go on in your mind. And now I had like the presentation speech coach asking me what my opening sentence was going to be right before I went on the stage. And so I said to her, you know, thank you very much. All the mistakes that most public speakers make. She's like, nope, that's not what you're saying. And like, this is truly my 5 minutes before I got on stage, and you have all these other things going on in your mind. Like, am I going to suck? Am I going to remember what I was supposed to tell them? And now I have her telling me that that's not what I'm going to say after you've rehearsed and rehearsed.
Yep.
And so she said, this is what you're going to say. And she told me what I was going to say. And so I walked on the stage, and, you know, I still to this day can feel myself vibrating from that experience. And it had a profound impact on my life because it did change the course of my speaking career, number one. But number two, when I walked up on a stage and I stood there, who was sitting in the front row was Patricia Fripp. And she sat through the whole thing. So now not only was she changing what I was saying, what I was about to, and feeding, you know, the fuel of being so afraid of stepping out of my comfort zone. That was a pivotal moment in my career.
And oh man, I love that. Because you know what, the thought that goes through your head during that period of time is, or right after that, is I'll never let that happen again. Like, if somebody asks me that question, I guarantee I'm going to have the right answer for that one. And so that prepared you for every time you would have gone on stage again in the future, right?
Absolutely. Well, you know, my father-in-law, bless his heart, he's passed on now, but he used to tell me, he used to say, you know, if I can't prepare you, the world will. And, you know, I tell I have twin daughters at home, and I tell them that all the time, right? If I can't teach you, the world will. And sometimes those lessons in that moment are the biggest learning moments that we'll ever have in our career, right?
Yeah.
Because we're in the moment. We have no choice.
Yeah, you could tell your kids, pick your teacher. And I'm not as harsh as the world is. Yeah. All unprepared.
Exactly.
All unprepared people will be punished by the market or the world at some point if they don't prepare. So now when I go on stage and I'm, you know, prepared, it's the easiest thing in the world for me. I don't sweat. I don't get nervous. I get excited. I get fired up.
Yeah.
But the times that I've ever, and for
Yeah.
those listening that want to get into public speaking or, have a fear of public speaking, what happens is if you're not prepared, that's when the sweaty palms come into play, the nervousness, the confusion in your mind. But when you're prepared and you take that proactive approach to being a professional, and being a champion and want to be the best, and you prepare, man, it's there's nothing more rewarding to me than doing that and then hitting the stage and then feeling accomplished and seeing the crowd and, a satisfied crowd when I'm done and an engaged crowd. It's a great feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you
It is. Well, and it's funny
Yeah.
about, sorry, I was gonna say about 10 years later, Patricia and I, because now we're good friends and colleagues. And so I said to her, I said, do you still get nervous? Because, professional speaker, Hall of Fame trailblazer. She's like, the only thing that gets me nervous is whether or not I'll still be able to deliver value. Am I delivering value to the audience? Is it the message they want to hear? Speaking does not make me nervous. It's about the delivery of that makes her nervous. So I think there always has to be, a particular point where you're still nervous, but what you're nervous about changes, right? So I think you're right. Preparation is definitely key.
Now, speaking, whether it's on the podcast or in front of people, physically in front of people, have you ever had an experience? Because I experienced this. I want to share this with you, where you, I don't want to say out of body experience, but it's more of an I don't even know the word, extrinsial, out of body experience, basically. Like you're seeing what's going on, but it's not really you, and you get on a roll. I think it might be called being in the zone. But you get going and you're just like rolling. And then when you're done, you look back and like, I don't even remember what I said. Like you ever had that?
That happens to me lots when I'm driving. You ever been on the road? You're by yourself and you're driving and all of a sudden towns go by and you think, what? How did I get here so fast? Where did this town and that town and that town go? Right? Like you're in the zone and you're just thinking and nobody to bother you or influence what you're thinking about. Totally been there. Totally.
Yeah. I love it. And I think that I perform the best when I'm in that mode. On the podcast, like I've interviewed some great people and I've also been on some big interviews or big podcasts. And I always look back and I'm like, I don't even remember saying that stuff. Where did that come from? Like, I'm glad I said it, but I don't remember. So I just didn't know if you experienced that before. How did you get your podcast with Coffee with Lisa podcast started? What inspired that?
You know what? That was just from, so several years ago. So I'm very fortunate. I have a really great network like you do, Mike. And everybody kept saying, I want to get on your podcast. Interview me. Well, I didn't have a podcast, but interview me. So I'm from Canada, a small town in Saskatchewan, Canada, actually, where that's where the podcast name Coffee from Lisa came from. So growing up on a farm as an only child, most business things that happened at the kitchen table over a cup of coffee. And so the neighbors would come and, in the wintertime, they'd farm right at the kitchen table. In the summertime, they'd farm at the kitchen table. Like we grew more crop on that kitchen table than we actually grew in the fields, to be quite honest. And so Coffee from Lisa really came from that concept of let's sit down and have a cup of coffee and share experiences and stories and walk away hopefully with a golden nugget that we can apply to our business or to our life. And so that's where Coffee with Lisa came from. So I'm in my second year now, third season. And I love it because I get to meet people and ask very intuitive, intelligent questions that sometimes are not often asked. And you get to learn some really great nuggets, if you will, about life and in business and how to apply it, right?
Yeah, I love that. Yep. I do that same thing. And I always look to see what kind of questions haven't been asked. Now I'm going to talk to you about the Top Sales World podcast. So let's talk about that for a second. So you're top 12, right? And how did that even come about? Yeah. How did that come about? And like, what did you apply for it or did you just hear about it or?
I didn't apply for it. I'm blessed. Somebody somewhere along the way nominated me for one of the top 12. So so it popped in my inbox actually that I was nominated for this. So I'm very excited about it, and amongst some really great podcasters. So it's, to me, I've already won. I don't care if I get the title or not. Just the idea that somebody's actually nominated and they're listening and I'm helping somebody, right? At the end of the day, Mike, that's why we do this. I don't make money off my podcast. I don't know about you. I don't make money off it's my gift to give back. I'm, like you, very fortunate to be aligned with some really great people who are experts in their fields. And sometimes that's the only way people can get access to that kind of information.
Yeah, it's like a coaching session. You can actually sit there and ask questions of like mentors. And I saw that you were on Sharon Lecter's podcast, and she was on yours as well.
Yep.
And she's friends with
Sharon.
do you know Greg Reed?
Yep.
Yeah, Greg Reed's a friend of mine.
Yep.
And
Secret Knock.
yeah, I know Sharon via Greg Reed, and 3 Feet from Gold and all that. So yeah, awesome people. And you know what? When you start talking to these people, then they connect you with other people. A lot of people don't realize how we make these connections, and then the network grows is you get around the right people, and then those people have learned from other people how to connect people and the value of that. And then everybody starts giving. It's more about giving than taking. And when you start doing that, then all of a sudden everybody's getting what they need because everybody's giving. Yeah. And,
that's right.
I think that's important to understand. And then that's how you get in touch with people like Merrill Hodge, for example. I see that was on your podcast, and who else is on here that I know of? I've heard of some of these people, but I'm a football guy. Of course, Tom Hopkins. Come on now. Tom Hopkins is who I basically studied under when I was in sales back in the late 90s.
Love Tom.
Yeah.
Love Tom. I had the opportunity last Christmas or the Christmas before, I guess it was, to sit down with him and Michelle in their home, and he's an amazing human being. And the stories, I mean, he told me about the time that he was knocked on the door, and this is when he was early in his real estate, like when he was just started out in his professional career as a real estate agent, and he knocked on the door and sold a Hell's Angel a house, and he talked about that story, right? And he's just an amazing human being. And I think one of the most profound things that Tom has ever said that has probably had one of the biggest impact on my life was he said, today you have 100% of your life left. And he said, every single day you have 100% of your life. I think people are so busy looking in the past and worried about what's happened in the past. Yes, we all make mistakes. God knows I've made more mistakes than I have done right. But if you don't learn from them, and if you stay stuck, like you talked about, then you're never going to move forward. And that's why I do believe that you have to be forward, not perfection. You just have to keep moving forward.
Yeah. And, like I said, I always look back for the fuel. And that's the main thing that I love to use, because there's so much valuable fuel behind us. And, Grant Cardone has wrote the foreword for my book. And one of the things he said in the foreword was, I wish I could tell you that as you go and get more successful, that the setbacks slow up or get smaller, but they don't. They actually get bigger. And but you're prepared for them. And once you understand the concept that they're all fuel for you and it's all supposed to happen, then you don't get stuck when they happen. You actually continue to push forward, and you look for opportunity in that setback immediately rather than getting stuck in it. All too many times people have an adversity. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, because we're cutting each other off. Sorry, Mike.
No, that's okay.
There's one of the most profound things that was ever said to me was actually by Grant a few years ago, and he said, obsession. His book. Well, first of all, he wrote the book, Be Obsessed or Be Average, right? But what he did tell me is he gave me permission, I think, and this had a profound impact on me. So we were having a conversation. He said, if you're not obsessed about not being average, and those weren't exactly his words, but you and I both know Grant well enough to know, then I'm not doing business with you, period. And that was, I just literally went, what? Like, what do you mean you're not going to do business with me? And that really gave me the catapult or the platform to say, you know what, I'm not crazy. I am obsessed about creating impact for others and what I'm doing and the value that I bring and how I can help people to continually move forward, get off this hamster wheel of life and business. And I mean, that had a profound impact on my life. And so I think words really matter. And I think when you sit and, like, you talked a little bit about, how you're in the zone, right? And podcasting is a really great way to be in the zone and really take in what people tell you. And when you really take in and you take to heart and you activate what people tell you, the world is your oyster. It really
Yeah,
truly
man.
is. I do
100%.
believe that.
100%. And
Yeah.
one thing I talk about a lot too is Grant did something for me where all these years, as a kid growing up, I was like wild. My mom always told me I was going to be a leader before I even knew what the word leader was. She
Yeah.
always said
Yeah.
that you stick to your guns, because when you believe in something, people will try to talk you out of it and to justify
Yeah.
their position in life or their own agenda. She taught me those two things. Well, I've had this leadership and stubborn on my beliefs all these years. And then over the years, what happened is that I have all these people that either aren't trying to be obsessed about being not being average. They're trying to justify where they are. They've quit. Whatever the case is, and eventually you start to close up, and you start to dampen that fire. And so what Grant did for me, it's
Yeah.
funny that you said that. He validated for me when I read the 10X rule the first time, and then in talking to him and immersing myself in his content, he gave me validation to unleash the beast, the good beast. It's not a bad beast, but it's an
I love it.
animal, and
Yeah.
and ever since he did that, I still still have people that don't get me, that feel
Yeah.
uncomfortable around me. And I used to like shut up, but now it's a rocket fuel concept. I turn it into fuel. I go harder. Like, if you tell me not to
Yeah.
do something, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it harder now. Or if you tell me to calm it down or tone it down, or you need to troll me back in, that's just like pulling a rubber band back. And this is the way it is now. And that's validated. So anything to me is possible. I feel like unstoppable now because of that. And I'm just continuously sharing that message along with my concepts. And that's why the rocket fuel and 10X go so well together. So
Yep. Yep. Well, it's interesting. You said something that really sparked. So one of the things that I say often is, when we believe the same, we are unstoppable together. And we create not a win-win, but a win-win-win, meaning a win for me, a win for you, but more importantly, a win for whatever the relationship is that we're trying, the impact that we're trying to achieve, right? And so it's interesting, you talk about people who hate on you or try to tamper or don't allow you to tune into that frequency of your greatness. And probably about a year ago, I guess it would have been, Mike, maybe a year and a half ago, I had the opportunity to sit down with somebody who's a billionaire, not an influencer, but a billionaire in business. And he said to me something that was so profound that I still think about it today. And he said, Lisa, you will know when you have achieved success when the closest people to you are no longer in your life. And I looked at him like, what do you mean by that? And he said, most people that are in your life currently today are in your life because you haven't achieved the level of success that you want. And people often will feel like they need to be surrounded to help you, right? Because they want to feel better than how you feel or what you're portraying. And when you get to a certain level of success, that those people look very different because they no longer feel that they can help you, and now you're in competition with them. And it was interesting, and probably about 8-9 months later, something happened in my life personally, and that exact moment I knew exactly what he was saying. And it's not that those people are bad that are around you, it's just that your life goes like this on a hockey stick and theirs stays the same. And what it does is it amplifies where they are versus where you are. And it's not because they hate you or dislike you. It's just that your life is taking a trajectory that they wish would happen for them. They just don't have the courage to do it.
yeah, and so that leads to also them a lot of times before you're like reaching levels of success, that you make them feel more comfortable, and then they start to get
Yeah.
uncomfortable, and people don't like that. They don't like change. But what about when it's family or people that are close to you, or spouses or moms or dads or brothers or sisters? I mean, that's when it gets harsh for people. They feel like it's harsh. But you have the decision that you're
I
either
think
going to
so.
go after your dream life and what you want to accomplish, as long as it's morally and ethically right, that, or you're not going to do it. You have a choice, and you have to figure out,
Yeah.
and those people have to get in line with it. They, it's tough.
I like it. You know what? You're right. You have a choice, but they have a choice too. And at some point, at some time in your life, I'm lucky. I'm very blessed. I have, great group of family around me that are, very supportive. And, you and I are entrepreneurs and we're risk takers, but we're not small, right? We're massive risk takers. And to most people, that just looks really not like we're making smart decisions, right? Because Sharon will talk about financial literacy and how we don't teach that in our schools, right? How we don't teach about abundance and amplification and thinking big. And big thinkers often get, not patted on the back, but actually tapped on the back of the head, like, don't be so stupid. You cannot achieve that. You cannot, those are audacious goals. There's no way. Imagine if somebody told Grant that he couldn't be a billionaire. Can you imagine if those are audacious goals and not everybody has them, but you need to find the people who are going to support you and amplify you. And if they don't, then you need to make a choice as to whether and how much you're going to integrate them in your life. Because some of them you can't exclude altogether, right? But you can choose how much influence they're going to have on you. You have the control of that. Nobody else does.
Yeah. And so something I think about every morning I wake up, everybody's got their beliefs, but I believe in God.
Yeah.
And I believe that I was put on this earth with a certain amount of potential and blessings. Some people call it blessings, potential, whatever. My job now is to show it and prove that I've been blessed, but also share the blessings. And if I don't do that and reach for my potential every single day, I feel like it's a slap in my creator's face. That's the way I operate and think. And, when somebody tells me that, you got to back it off a little bit, it's like, you're not in that position to be able to tell me that. I'm sorry.
It's almost like an addiction, isn't it? It's almost like when you get it out of your comfort zone for the first time and something really great happens fundamentally, like whether it's a feeling or if it's a result or it's a sale or it's money or whatever it happens to be, it's like you get addicted to that. And then you never want to go back. Once you've been there once, you never want to go back. And I just wish for every single human on the planet that they could have that feeling once, because I think our world would be in a very different place.
Yeah, that's the problem I have. The problem that I have inside of me that I need to work on. It's an opportunity for growth, is that I see greatness in people and I see the answers and they don't see it yet. And then if you say something, they resent you for doing it because they're not ready yet. And it's just, I get it. I get that it's when the student's ready, the teacher will appear and all that jazz. But sometimes I'm not okay with like sitting back and taking that for the answer. I like to push the envelope a little bit. And listen, I'm transparent. I'll talk about my challenges all day just to share it with people so they know that they're not the only ones out there. Yeah, I mean, have you felt that before as well?
Oh God, I've had more no's and more doors slammed in my face. Right now I'm writing a book. So I'm writing a book, co-authoring a book with a gentleman by the name of Jim Cathcart. I don't know if you know Jim or not, but he wrote the Acorn Principle, TEDx talk, How to Believe in Yourself. Anyways, we've had quite a few no's on our book. But that's okay, because that no just means not yet. And if anybody's ever taught me that, it's Tom Hopkins. No is just not yet. And you got to keep going. I mean, Chicken Soup for the Soul, look how many no's that they got before they actually got a yes. So I think, one of the greatest things that Grant teaches most people is the art of resilience. Keep going, keep asking, keep muddling along, keep being persistent, right? Follow up is key. Like, the greatest successes that I've had is because I am relentless in follow-up. You just keep asking until you get a yes. And no is just a not yet.
Yeah. My favorite thing is, why you keep calling me? Because you haven't said yes yet. So it's very simple. Exactly. I mean, just say yes. Exactly. I'll stop calling you.
It's my job. Exactly. It's our job, Mike, right? To ask the right question at the right time. And so that might take 50 calls.
Yeah.
But so what?
Well, that's right. Well, Lisa, is there any final words you want to share with the audience? Anything I missed I should have asked you that I didn't?
Mike, you did. There's one question you haven't asked me that you should have asked. When is Mike coming on Coffee with Lisa?
I don't know. Am I scheduled yet? I can't keep track on my mind. I use my calendar so much. Am I booked yet or no?
I know you're not, but you will be.
Okay, well, let's go. We'll get it going right away. Whenever you need me to, I'll jump on there. I never turn down a podcast. And that's another thing I've heard
No,
with
me neither.
really successful people say no a lot. And I don't know that I'm really successful yet, because I really don't I'll say yes, because one, I want to provide value to that person and give them, there's so many podcasters out there that have no energy, and it drives me batty. They're on a podcast, they have an opportunity to speak to the world, and they're talking monotone, and I'm like, I got to pump this guy up. Let's go.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Not that I need that on your show.
Exactly. No, you're not going to get that on my show.
No, we won't have a problem there. So how can my audience interact, engage with you?
You know what? They can find me at, I've got a handle. It's Lisa Patrick BFD, or they can find me at lisapatrick.ca.
And how did we get in touch, by the way? Because I have a bunch of people connecting me with great folks, and I don't remember, was it Justin Breen or was it just on LinkedIn that we reached? Do you remember?
I think it was LinkedIn. You know what? I've followed your podcast for a while. I know what it was. You know what? You had Unstoppable Tracy on, and Tracy and I know each other well.
Gotcha.
And I started following you after I saw that.
Gotcha.
I hadn't heard of you before, quite honestly.
No, that's my fault.
I started following your podcast and listening, and there's a lot of people in the world, Mike. We got a long way to go before we're in front of every single person.
No. Grant always says that when somebody
we know each other now.
Yeah, Grant says that all the time when somebody said they haven't heard of him. He goes, "Well, that's my fault. That's why I said that."
Yeah.
Well, Lisa,
exactly.
Thank you so much for joining us on the What Are You Made Of podcast. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Great to learn about you. And guys, go listen to Lisa with Coffee with Lisa on her podcast. Check it out. And what's the other podcast called that you have with Lauren?
It's Culture Uncorked. So
Culture
it's all
Uncorked.
So that's a relatively new one. We just started that a couple months ago. So I'm co-hosting with a gentleman by the name of Lauren Rubis, who's retired from the C-suite. He's my business partner at Belongify, and we talk all about culture and uncorking it, and what all the great things you can do with teams and business.
Yeah, I'm big on culture, man. That's awesome. So I'll be happy to come on that one too. Whatever I can do to help you. Yeah. And guys, also look out for Lisa's book when she does get it together and she gets a deal. Maybe I'll start a publishing company and just give her a deal right away. Whatever we need to do.
It's called the Intelligent Curiosity, if anybody's looking for it.
Intelligent Curiosity. All right, great. Well, Lisa, thank you so much, guys. You've been listening to the What Are You Made Of podcast with your boy, Mike C-Roc. Go get that Rocket Fuel book, guys. It is available. MikeCroc.com/book, MikeCroc.com/book. It is a future bestseller. So just go get it, and then you'll get it ahead of time, and then you'll say, hey, I had that before it was a bestseller. And I guarantee it'll change your life. Go ahead, Lisa.
Congratulations on getting Grant to write the forward for you. Kudos, man.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Appreciate that. And guys, if you have any questions on how to reach me, Google my name. You can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, my YouTube channel, Mike C-Roc Ciorrocco, or this podcast is available on all podcast platforms, Apple and Spotify and all of them. So until next time, guys, be good.